Misumi Makoto, like you, is the average disappointment of a son who was sacrificed by his parents in a contract that made him go through the most boring isekai known to man. He was summoned by a goddess from another world who almost went blind when she saw the ugly dwarf. Out of mercy, she banished him to the ends of the world with a power to communicate with pigs and ogres. Misumi's day played out the usual way. He finished school and went to practice archery before going to bed. But unlike every other day, he was isekai'd in the most uneventful way. He woke up suspended in a magical dimension where he was greeted by Tsukuyomi no Mikoto, one of the 3 noble children from Japanese history. Tsukuyomi revealed that Misumi's parents were magic aliens who signed a contract promising the goddess of their world their worthless son in exchange for keeping their beautiful daughters. Misumi, who had always dreamed of a legendary isekai harem that made him a hero with magical baddies as his subordinates, was excited to meet the goddess. Tsukuyomi, who understood the ways of men, promised to take care of Misumi's comics and culture figurines. After leaving a letter for his parents, he was transported to the goddess's castle. The goddess needed help battling the demons and spirits in her world that were troubling her humans. She summoned Misumi because his dad was a hero in his time. But upon seeing the fun-sized twix who made ogres look good, the goddess nearly lost her vision to the potency of his ugliness. She decided to banish him to the ends of her world to live with his fellow creatures of the dark away from human civilization. She spared him a power of communication before dropping him off 10,000 feet in the sky. He was saved by Tsukuyomi, who gave the poor outcast some extra powers before leaving to take a quick 300-year nap. Tsukuyomi also revealed that Misumi's change in worlds left him a lot stronger than he was on Earth. After 3 lonely days of walking through the wastelands, Misumi heard a cry for help and ran excitedly to meet who he hoped would be his first magical cherry pop. The cry for help was coming from a pig in a onesie who was about to become bacon for a 2-headed black bingo. Seeing as she was his only hope of companionship, Misumi decided to drop-kick the 20-foot beast, chopping its head and spraying its throat throughout the canyon. The piglet, who was terrified of the deformed human, introduced herself as Emma and brought Misumi back to her straw house. Emma's brothers were disgusted as they knew humans were diabolical, but had never seen one so ugly before. They assumed he was a deformed subspecies that was cast out after birth. Emma showed Misumi how to perform magic, and after seeing him easily learn a spell, she tested his level, but wasn't surprised to learn that the human ogre was a level 1 magician. The next day, Misumi left a letter for Emma where he revealed that he was leaving and would take care of her Shen problem, as Emma had revealed that she was going to sacrifice herself to Shen to help her people's vegetables grow the previous day before she was attacked. Before getting to Shen, Misumi decided to practice his magic and used the spell Emma taught him to create a flaming arrow. He tested his new weapon on a group of goblins, committing mass annihilation, before becoming sawdust. The goblin revealed that they were the ones tormenting Emma and her orc village by making them believe that Shen would roast them for breakfast if they didn't offer up their most beautiful ladies. Just then, Shen, who was supposed to be a mirage-creating clam, but turned out to be an invincible dragon, attacked Misumi. Thanks to Tsukuyomi's powers, he escaped the strikes. After landing a hit on the invincible dragon, Shen caged him in a magic cube and put him in a memory trance where Misumi watched a recap of his greatest fumble. Despite being a hideous midget, he was approached by a Hasegawa, who was a 6-foot angel with D-cup melons and extra-large drumsticks. She asked him out on a date, likely because her vision was impaired. The terrified Misumi, who couldn't stop gawking over her huge melons, made her cry after rejecting her. Seeing his memories, Shen realized he was an alien and became obsessed with knowing about his escapades in the other dimension. After Misumi escaped the trap, Shen offered to be his companion, and after forming an 80-20 contract that meant Shen was practically his slave, Shen transformed into a kimono-wearing goddess and pledged her allegiance to her new master. Misumi, who had regained enough composure from the shock of seeing Shen's new form, asked why she had become a human. She explained that the contract made the weaker being transformed into whatever form the stronger one had. Riding a dragon through the wastelands would have been nice, but a D-cup servant that did whatever he wanted was not such a bad idea as well. Shen brought Misumi to her demi-plane, which was usually filled with darkness, but had become a utopia filled with fruits and animals similar to the regular world. Misumi drafted a plan to build his dream city and accomplish his harem goals in the utopia. The fact that the demi-plane was entirely under Shen's control meant it was safe from the goddess. Back in the mountains, Emma, who chased after Misumi to stop him from fighting Shen, had a stroke when she discovered that Misumi had defeated the invincible dragon and made her his personal assistant. They decided to head back to Emma's orc village to clear up the misunderstanding that Shen was a bacon-eating dragon. After a night of drinking, Misumi woke up to the entire orc village packed up, ready to head somewhere. Shen revealed that she had invited them to live in the demi-plane. She had also mixed in several species of creatures to spice up the place. When he expressed his concerns, a mini-Shen that almost caused Misumi a heart attack announced herself as the demi-plane's guardian angel. She was a clone of Shen created to watch over the demi-plane. Misumi, who had more harem-related plans, was pissed but too scared to turn down the army of boars. After transporting them all to the demi-plane, the orcs got to work building new homes and towns across the rich land. Misumi, who discovered that he had become a low-level avatar, was analyzing his element-controlling powers, while Shen was drooling over the historical dramas in Misumi's memories. She left to go build a television to get a full experience of her newfound obsession after revealing Misumi's cosplay fantasies. Meanwhile, in the woods, an elderly dwarf was putting his muffin legs to work trying to escape from a Godzilla-level spider. Back in Misumi's new orc kingdom, some of the orcs were struggling to cut down a tree. Misumi was able to cut it down by infusing some of the powers Tsukuyomi gave him into a dagger. He also used the powers to heal one of the orcs. Unfortunately, he found out that he couldn't use the healing powers on himself. Shen returned with the old dwarf from earlier and informed her master of the spider that had found the demi-plane by following the scent of Shen's blood. The elderly dwarf revealed that the creature was known as the Black Spider of Disaster, an ancient creature that was always hungry. Shen had fought it before but only drove it away by inflicting some injuries. After evading most of the spider's attacks, Misumi managed to chop off one of its legs, but the mythical creature had Wolverine-level regeneration. Misumi went all out trying to inflict enough damage to drive the creature away, but in a weird turn of events the spider seemed to enjoy taking a beating. It chased after Misumi, giggling with excitement while being chopped into pieces. After finally catching up to him and stabbing him in the gut, Misumi switched mode like 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐍𝐿 the lion's sin of pride and blew the beast away while using his powers to create a fire-shooting mega revolver. The high magic use made him tired. He passed out, and the spider finally got a hold of him. Instead of chomping down on Misumi, the psychotic creature slobbered over him, revealing its love and desire to remain with him forever. Seeing as Misumi's beating had brought its senses back, Shen reasoned with the spider, convincing it to enter a contract with them and take on a human form as well, to be able to stay with Misumi, who the creature was clearly obsessed with. Misumi woke up in bed, healed up, and was greeted by the latest addition to his steadily growing family, who thanked him for the beatdown and offered her services to her new master. Spider-chan explained how Emma used her powers to heal Misumi while he was passed out. She revealed that she was the mountain-sized spider that almost double isekai'd him. Pissed off, he questioned Shen, who revealed that she had created the contract without his permission because having a slobbering spider-zilla following them around wasn't the best of options. The elderly dwarf had come to speak to Misumi. He introduced himself as Baron, a dwarf whose lineage was known for crafting famous and sacred artifacts. He thanked Misumi for saving his village from the mega spider and asked for permission to migrate to the demi-plane. Misumi granted him permission, but Shen gave the dwarf the condition of worshipping Misumi as their lord and paying taxes. Later on, Misumi had finally spotted a human village and was about to head into it when Shen summoned him for an urgent matter. They wanted him to give them names. He named Shen, Tomo, and Spider-san Mio. Shen's name made her level up. Misumi had chosen a name that represented a female samurai. As a result, she absorbed the respective skill set immediately. The next day, Misumi took to the podium to address his new subjects. Besides the dwarves and orcs, there were two other species present. The girls later revealed that the serpent and spider species that had joined the community were their respective followers. They all agreed to refer to Misumi as Young Master. Afterwards, Misumi was greeted by 𝐿𝐷, the dwarf village chief. After greeting his subjects, Misumi ran off, eager to see actual humans. On the way to the village, he saw a blonde-haired beauty. Before he could get to her, she saw him and ran away screaming. Confused, he kept heading to the village and was met by a large army with weapons drawn against him. After trying to speak to them, they rained down attacks and sent him running. He realized that he couldn't understand or speak to them. The goddess's spell that gave him the ability to understand every creature took away his ability to communicate with humans. Back in his house in the demi-plane, the girls had come to cheer him up and revealed that aside from his seizure-invoking ugliness, his immense mana distorted the area around him and made him appear as multiple giant demon lords to regular humans. After discovering that he could learn the human language known as Common again, he spent 2 weeks studying it. The dwarf had also made a ring for him to subdue his mana, but it broke once he wore it as his mana was way too high. The dwarf then left to create another. After 1 month, he had started speaking the human language, and the ring called Daupnir had been completed. He finally had all he needed to complete his mission to escape loneliness. After putting on a 15th century ninja suit, he and his concubines set out to the village. They disguised him as a rich merchant passing through the village as a tourist. Once in town, Misumi admired all the humans and their model-level beauty. After strolling around town, they got to the Zetsuya Adventurers Guild, where the cute receptionist took a jab at the short weirdo in a retro jumpsuit. His girls came to his rescue, claiming that he was a cursed merchant who had to cover his contagious curse with a mask and couldn't speak as well. She proceeded to fill them in on the kind of jobs they could do, as well as the ranking system for adventurers, which started from the first level E rank to the SSS rank. She explained that as beginners they were limited to E rank jobs but could level up by taking on some special jobs that were much riskier but could increase their ranks easily. Misumi, who claimed to be a merchant, was told that he had to go to the town called 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐒𝐑𝐈𝐿𝐏𝐍 to be reassigned his merchant card, as he claimed he had forgotten it. He found out that the highest ranked adventurer in the village was a Mills ace who was ranked SS at level 444. The girls, who couldn't resist drawing attention, got their hands on ranking scrolls and got registered with the guild immediately. Their ranks were revealed. Tomo was at level 1320, while Mio was at level 1500. Misumi, on the other hand, was still a level 1 geek and pissed off the other adventurers who thought the rich merchant used the girls as meat shields. Tomo and Mio had the highest ever recorded levels. The third highest was Bulgasama, the Dragon Slayer, who was ranked SSS at level 920. They had found an inn to stay and rented a room for 2 gold pieces after Tomo almost thrashed the place as punishment for the receptionist's attempt to scam them. They have discovered that the items that could only be bought in the village were unusually expensive, which seemed suspicious. Misumi took Mio out for dinner and left a heartbroken Tomo to look after their items, as they had noticed that several people had been following them the whole time. While sitting out on the wagon, Tomo noticed their stalkers closing in and drew her blade, while Misumi and Mio, who were returning from dinner, were stopped by a roughed-up little girl. Misumi sent Mio to figure out why the little girl had stopped them. Mio, who didn't like her dates being interrupted, almost gave the girl a heart attack and was cautioned by Misumi. He then went over to question the girl himself. After she threw herself at him crying, he decided to take her back to the inn. A suspicious adventurer from earlier, who had stalked them, seemed pleased and left. Back at the inn, the little girl revealed herself as Rinnon. She claimed that she didn't have a home and that her sister, who she traveled with, was missing. Meanwhile, at the wagon, Tomo was making ham slices out of the amateur ninja stalkers that followed them. She managed to capture one and brought the ninja to the room. After stripping the ninja of its weapons and vests, a mega-sized set of lemons popped out, revealing that the knocked-out ninja was a lady. While scolding Tomo for her reckless murder spree, little Rinnon walked in thanking Misumi for his help. She then gave him a picture of her missing sister, which had an immediate effect on Misumi's mood. After returning from digesting the diced-up ninjas, Mio noticed Misumi's bizarre mood and joined him and Tomo as they were going through the ninjas' memories. They discovered that she was also at the guild. Misumi showed the girls the picture of Rinnon's missing sister and asked them to go find her. The reason for his sudden mood change was the girl's striking resemblance to his one true love, Hasegawa. On the way to find the missing girl, Tomo and Mio discussed Misumi's mood and decided to find Rinon's sister quickly to lift his spirits. The next day, Misumi took Rinon with him to the trading exchange where they could trade goods for some cash. He praised Rinon for being able to drive a wagon, but Rinon was too worried about her sister. She remembered how her sister kept going on adventures to pay off their debts and came back one night with severe injuries after failing a mission. She had not seen her sister since and became a slave to the crooked adventurer that they were indebted to. Meanwhile, her sister, who was locked in a dungeon, was about to cross over to the spirit world. She thought about how she had come to the wastelands looking for a treasured short sword that one of her relatives had lost after being exterminated by a powerful creature. She came looking to redeem them. In what was almost her final moments, Tomo and Mio came in and healed her. On their way out, they were stopped by 𝐒𝐿, the town's strongest adventurer. Meanwhile, Misumi and Rinon had just gotten back to the inn. Rinon saw the crooked adventurer waiting for her in an alleyway and ran off, escaping Misumi, who was getting too touchy. Misumi decided to stalk her using the surveillance powers he gained from Tsukuyomi and found out that the adventurer was forcing Rinon to steal the money he just got from selling fruits at the trading exchange. 𝐒𝐿, the town's strongest adventurer, had stopped the girls from leaving. The crooked adventurer who controlled Rinon was also there to update his boss. Rinon's sister revealed that 𝐒𝐿 was the kingpin who controlled everything. The adventurer wanted the girls to join him. He also revealed that there were several bounties on the head of the humanoid creature with Demon Lord level mana who showed up recently, which was definitely Misumi. Knowing this, the girls declined and got pissed when 𝐒𝐿 dissed Misumi for being a spoiled level 1 geek who couldn't defend himself. They attacked him, but he stopped their strike with the 𝐋𝐈𝐍𝐊, a powerful barrier magic spell that withstood great attacks. Back at the inn, Rinon was sitting outside and was being chased off by the receptionist who dropped down begging when Misumi told him that she was a good friend to him. Feeling guilty for wanting to rob her ugly cursed knight, she apologized to Misumi, who she now referred to as brother. Meanwhile, the girls were finally fully heated up. Tomo broke through the 𝐋𝐈𝐍𝐊 with a single hit, sending 𝐒𝐿 and his goons into flight mode. She proceeded to pound into every single one of them while Mio broke open the other dungeons to release all the captives. She then went to find 𝐒𝐿 and gave him a nasty face augmentation with a couple of hundred slaps. After smashing up the building and freeing everyone, 𝐒𝐿 held Rinon's sister with a dagger to the neck and got a projectile launched into the heavens. In a bid to figure out who had dealt more damage, the girls took turns destroying the entire village until it had more holes than the Hidden Leaf village did after Pain visited it. Rinon finally reunited with her long-lost sister. Later on at the inn, after thanking Misumi, the sisters slept off. Misumi then asked Mio to produce some spider silk, which he used to wrap up the girls and used his expert archer skill to send them across the globe. He had to figure out how to hide the damage they had done, which was too grand to go unnoticed. After leaving Zetsuya, the gang arrived at one of the Adventurer Guild's bases on their way to 𝐒𝐶𝐓. Thanks to Tomo, the memories of the freed adventurers were altered, so they remember their town being destroyed by monsters and not 2 brain-dead slaves. Only Rinon and her sister Toa still had their original memories. The adventurers named Tomo and Mio as the ones that chased away the demons. But because the town, along with all its information, was destroyed, the receptionist told Misumi that they would have to re-register as adventurers in 𝐒𝐶𝐓. Seeing as Tomo's jealousy over Mio's higher level was the cause of the problem, Misumi tricked her into wanting to go on a training arc known as a knight errantry. Mio liked the idea she could finally have him all to herself. Her plans were cut short as Rinon, Toa and the other adventurers were now also riding along with them. While on the way to 𝐒𝐶𝐓, they encountered several deadly red bees. He made Mio destroy them, and Toa, who had altered his midget brain chemistry with her carefully placed melons, butchered them to collect their eyes and wings, which were very valuable in their world. Seeing Toa, the Hasegawa doppelganger drenched in red bee guts, traumatized Misumi. After coming upon ruby eyes, an ultra-rare monster species, Misumi was made to kill them as everyone else was too scared, and Mio was tired of being told how to be a monster assassin. Misumi killed all the ruby eyes with his bow and arrow skills, which was the only thing he had accomplished pre-isekai. His fake merchant company that he named the Kuzunoha Trading Company now had valuable merchandise. Once at 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐿 he re-registered as an adventurer but made Mio wait for Tomo to return before re-registering herself, an excuse he used to escape from being disgraced by how high level the girls were. While looking through quests, he stumbled upon a special client request from the Rembrandt Trading Company. They wanted 12 ruby eyes, which they had just collected. Seizing the opportunity, he had Toa to split their haul and took the eyes he needed. They decided to share a meal together before parting ways. Toa exchanged contact information with him through their adventurer cards, which were surprisingly high-tech. At the restaurant, Misumi had just seen every manga addict's dream meal, the infamous meat on a bone, and briefly went insane, while simultaneously crying with ecstasy and stuffing his face. One of the adventurers named Louisa, who was an A-rank bless gunner and an elf, revealed how she sensed nothing but a sad emptiness from Misumi, but also complimented his competence with arrows. Hazel, who was a B-rank alchemy meister that couldn't handle his beer, asked Misumi about his plans for the ruby eyes. After Misumi told him about the special job with the Rembrandt Company, Ranina, the last adventurer who was a dwarf B-ranked priest knight, had clearly taken too much liquor and wanted to arm wrestle. She pulled up her sleeve and revealed a very intimidating arm. Misumi, who still had his isekai granted strength, managed to win the match. Toa, who was an A-rank dark thief, had heard him talk about the job and warned him about some bad rumors she had heard about the Rembrandt Trading Company. After the dinner, he sent Mio into the room first while he went to grab the materials for the job. Mio, who had already planned a night of pleasurable servitude to her master, but the dim-witted Misumi, who was an expert fumbler, dozed off the second he hit the bed. The next day, Misumi and Mio went back to the demi-plane, where they met up with Mini Tomo and Emma, who was pissed at the young master for not portraying himself like royalty. She revealed that Mio's 𝐒𝐔𝐿𝐍 had settled into the mountains while the orcs and Tomo's mist lizards were assisting their relocation. The dwarves were on construction and repair duties. They were also creating weapons for Misumi to test out. The orcs were primarily charged with building Misumi's massive headquarters, which would also serve as a meeting point. Emma disclosed that they were using work procedures obtained from his memories, which Tomo had extracted and stored, and were able to move things smoothly by doing that. Eld, the chief of the dwarves, got Misumi to see the unnecessarily large suits of armor they had made for him. He crushed their already tiny hearts by refusing to use them, as the weight alone could break him. Misumi was more interested in a fancy trench coat that Eld claimed to be a protective gear that absorbed mana like the Draupnir. Rugi, who made the ring, also made this trench coat and explained its mana-absorbing qualities. It was also a 2-in-1 suit that Misumi could switch with his mind from the blue to the red, but as with all of Rugi's first-time inventions, Misumi's mana blew it up, causing Rugi to promise him instant death with the next coat. Mio's 𝐒𝐿𝐍𝐿, who were mastering the art of morphing, had brought items they had plucked from the demiplane, revealing that things grown in the demiplane soil were more potent than regular. The poison fire corals had almost burnt off one of the 𝐒𝐿𝐍𝐿's hands. Misumi had decided to go see the client from the Rembrandt Trading Company alone, as Mio, who would eat an entire town, was not to be trusted, and Tomo was still MIA at the company. Things seemed to be going smoothly until his client claimed to have nothing he wanted to do with Misumi. At the Adventurers Guild, the receptionist was getting interrogated by a guy who wanted to get a description of Misumi, who was at the Rembrandt Trading Company meeting with Patrick Rembrandt, the company representative. Misumi introduced himself as a level 1 E rank who wanted to become a registered merchant. Patrick, who thought the masked freak was a pathetic wannabe that wanted to use his company for merchant clout, refused to speak with him any longer. Misumi, who expected his reaction, whipped out 2 of the rare ruby eyes. Patrick suddenly became a kind gentleman who was willing to speak with Misumi. Misumi wanted to know why Patrick needed the eyes. The company representative revealed that his wife and daughters were suffering from what he called a level 8 cursed disease, which was a disease caused by a witch doctor's ritual. The only cure was ambrosia, a special medicine known as the cure-all in their world. After subtly revealing that he might have murdered the witch doctor, Misumi offered to help him make the medicine by connecting him with the alchemist miser Hazal, in exchange for watching the production process. Feeling optimistic, Patrick expressed his joy for coming one step closer, but became truly ecstatic when Misumi revealed that he had 3 pairs of eyes. 2 eyes were to be used for each person, so Misumi having 3 pairs meant that Patrick could cure his whole family. The contagious happiness spread to the butler Morris and the rest of the company's employees. Misumi went off to register in the Merchants Guild. Once he got to the receptionist, she told him that he needed to pass 2 tests, one written and another, which was a practical test that required him to acquire certain high-level items. After paying for the very expensive manual with 2 gold coins, he took one look and told her that he was ready for the written test. He was brought to an empty class where a man gave him the test paper and took back the manual. Expecting the masked midget to spend a couple of hours and fail, the professor was left stunned when Misumi, who was a bookworm in his past life, finished in a couple of minutes. After reading through and seeing that he got everything right, the professor turned to the practical test, desperate to see him fail. He was to acquire several high-level items, including the fangs of the wolf fang, or present items of equal or higher value. Only someone above level 50 could acquire those items, but seeing as he already went on adventures with people ranked above 100 with receipts to prove it, he dumped his bag of red bee eyes, antennae, and scythe eye fangs. The professor thought he was dealing with a messiah and got even more frustrated when Misumi didn't even express the slightest bit of excitement. After passing the tests, the receptionist told him to return the next day to get his guild card. The hungry bookworm decided to grab some grub and try to contact Tomo. Tomo, who had just finished slaying King Kong-sized reptiles, snuck back into the demiplane to cook a mega crab. Once it was done, she and the orcs sent their tongues to taste paradise. She had seen how humans stayed silent while eating crabs in Misumi's memory, and finally understood why. While she was feasting, one of the orcs came to inform her that Mio was going through Misumi's memories. Fearing Mio was snacking on her precious historical dramas, she ran to the memory vault where she met Emma, who had sent the orc to trick her. Mio was merely translating the memories. Emma, who had become a control freak, threatened to reveal Tomo's secret return and crab feast to Master Misumi if she didn't do her job. Mio explained to Tomo that the memory translation was delaying the demiplane's development. Tomo decided to spend her time catching up on her historical dramas. After teasing Mio for having the master all alone in a room and getting no action, Mio came across a memory that she seemed to like. Meanwhile, Misumi was finally at a restaurant but was confused as he couldn't understand the menu. A couple close by mentioned that the presence of a giant crab was affecting the usual swarm of red bees. Misumi, who had ordered what he thought was a lemonade, killed his taste buds when he drank what was definitely monster piss. Trying to see if he could develop a taste for the weird drink, he had a second go and passed out on his table. At the far corner of the restaurant, the worried civilian from earlier who was looking for Misumi after learning about the Rembrandt job now had a partner with him. Mini Tomo had just finished getting the orcs to pack up the fruits and was stealing one for herself when Misumi showed up through a mist gate. He also wanted to sneak some real food. She told him about the abnormal weather changes that had been happening, and he asked about the building of the illusory city, a project he planned to use to slowly introduce the trade of the demiplane fruits and items to the rest of the world through his merchant company. Just then, Tomo telepathically ruptured his eardrums. She called him to come to the memory vault and save her from Mio. Once there, he found Mio trying to strip Tomo because of some of his memories. After asking one of Mio's alkaes and interrogating the brawling stepwives, he found out that Mio had also developed an addiction to his memories, but, unlike Tomo, she liked watching the anime and Sunday morning kid shows his dad forced him to watch. Later that night at the inn, after unsuccessfully trying to pop the righteous Misumi's cherry, the girls went to sleep, and Misumi, who was planning his merchant takeover, received a text from 𝐒𝐶, who was excited to work on ambrosia for Patrick Rembrandt. The next morning, the duo met up and left to start the project. Meanwhile, Misumi's stalker asked his partner to gather all the adventurers he could find for a Rembrandt takedown mission. Patrick and Morris were not the cheery gentlemen they pretended to be. A quick flashback showed the moment he put the tortured witch doctor out of his misery with his blade. Misumi and 𝐒𝐒𝐁𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐿 had arrived at Patrick Rembrandt's mansion to help with the ambrosia production. Hazel was terrified to mess things up, as getting on Patrick's bad side wasn't something to look forward to. Patrick greeted the gentlemen and escorted them to the production chamber. Hazel asked why the rare ruby eyes were essential, as the conventional method involved ambrosia flowers. But, seeing as those were near impossible to acquire, they decided to use the eyes of the ruby eyes that naturally fed on the flower's nectar. After making the magical preparations, with Misumi secretly assisting the terrified Hazel, they began producing the medicine. After succeeding, Morris went to deliver it to Patrick, who went to administer it to his wife. But he came back full of despair. His wife had attacked him, refusing to let him administer the medicine. Hazel revealed that the level 8 curse that had turned his wife and daughters into psycho red-eyed Deadpools was designed to also make them fight against treatment. Feeling defeated, Patrick gave up. Misumi decided to offer his strength to the cause and restrain Patrick's wife and daughters. After initially being skeptical about the masked midget, Hazel and Morris convinced him. Misumi went into her room to get the medicine on a napkin in order to lure Lady Deadpool out. She bashed the door in and immediately went for the kill. Misumi, who had experience in judo, used his isekai strength to pin her down while Patrick held her down with his hand in her mouth. He used the opportunity to pour the cure down her throat, and she immediately reverted back to her normal post-chemotherapy self. Next were his daughters. Misumi went into her room and used his investigative spell to see her crouched on the edge of the ceiling. She lunged at him, but his judo skills once again triumphed, and she was cured as well. The final sister was a different story. She was still fighting her inner demon when he came in. But seeing his ugly mask must have given the demon the last ounce of strength necessary. Luckily for her, this exorcism made sure the demon left for good. After curing all of them, Patrick expressed his deepest gratitude to Misumi and 𝐒𝐒𝐁𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐏𝐍. 𝐒𝐒𝐁𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐏𝐿 was just happy to have successfully finished the job without spilling the medication. He would have probably suffered a worse fate than the witch doctor if he had failed. Outside the mega mansion, Misumi met Mio and Tomo, who claimed to be worried about him but just wanted him to escort her to the guild to re-register and measure her new level. Just then, an explosion spell was cast and Misumi jumped out in time. The stalkers that were following him all day had come to finish him off for working with Patrick. Mio and Tomo brushed off the warm breeze, revealing that they followed his stalkers and wanted to toy with their weakness. The stalkers came prepared with a mini army of adventurers, including a low-budget She-Hulk. He finally revealed himself as Lime Latte, their top adventurer. They bargained with Tomo and Mio to leave the masked midget. Mio agreed to stay out of the fight for 10 gold pieces. This was a plan by Misumi to prevent another Ketsuya-level destruction. Tomo, who had gone insane with her love for historical dramas, quickly disarmed the adventurers, leaving just Lim-san and his assistant. They tried to get Mio to help them, but she refused. When they tried to blackmail her with the promised funds, she explained how she would prefer taking the money from their corpses. The petrified assistant started a transportation spell to escape, but was face-slapped into the ground by Misumi. Tomo was about to end Lim-san when a quick memory glance made him look worthy of a second chance. After pleading for his life and getting questioned, he revealed that Patrick's ambition had put a lot of adventurers on his bad side, leaving a lot of them jobless or taking fatal jobs. The witch doctor made him believe that they were only putting his family to sleep, but he had other plans. After finding out about the witch doctor's death, he focused on getting revenge, which had now put him at Misumi's mercy. Tomo spared him because the memory glance showed her that he did all that to protect his orphanage and kids that were growing up there. After being spared, he visited Patrick to apologize, and Morris, who had started being more terrifying than his boss, suggested immediate execution. Ultimately, they let him go after he revealed that he was quitting the Adventurers Guild to atone for his sins. Later on, he was visited by Tomo, who gave him a new sword and hired him as her personal bingo. He initially seemed hesitant but lost his dignity when she dumped a fat bag of gold on him. Back at the Rembrandt mansion, Tomo overheard Patrick and Morris discussing plans for Misumi, who they now saw as competition. Misumi and his girls finally went back to the demi-plane and were eating well when Emma revealed that they had a problem. At Misumi's temporary home, Emma revealed that their problem was the state of depression all their warriors were currently stuck in. To solve this, they decided to find a way to merge the skills of the orcs and lizards. An arena was created for a battle between the strongest warrior from the Highland orcs named 𝐒𝐒𝐓𝐈𝐍 and the mist lizards 𝐿𝐼𝐍. After pulling their weapons, an extremely fierce bout began, with both sides dealing deadly blows until 𝐒𝐒𝐓𝐈𝐍 came out on top, defeating the mist lizard. After seeing their performance, Tomo addressed them, roasting their collective weakness and highlighting the disappointment of their performance. She told them to begin fighting together every weekend in a tournament to be called the Demi-Plane Rankings, as a way of learning each other's skills and growing stronger. Misumi agreed with this and encouraged the warriors. Afterwards, the gang went to the guild to measure Mio and Tomo's levels. Mio was still superior despite Tomo's knight errantry. After the grading, the receptionist informed Misumi of a special request from the guild for them to train the next top adventurer, as Lime had retired. Knowing that they were responsible for hospitalizing the previous adventurers, Misumi accepted the task. He asked Tomo to train Toa's party and make them stronger. She trained them by throwing them into battle with the ferocious Shadowtails. After multiple defeats, she taught them a strategy and left them to take down a whole den of mountain tails. The next morning at the guild, she terrified everyone when she told them about how she basically signed Toa's party's isekai warrants by leaving them in the territory of Death Wish Road and Tinnarak Forest, known for disappearing adventurers. But to everyone's surprise, the party came back victorious and earned their respect. Back home, Misumi asked Mio to help him find ambrosia flowers, which he discovered were in the Tinnarak Forest. He, on the other hand, went to meet Patrick Rembrandt with his plans to secure a shop. He didn't want to buy land as that would result in him having to become a government spy. Patrick agreed to help him and suggested an area that was not governed by any kingdom. He had acquaintances that would help Misumi. He loved the idea and left to give Patrick time to make preparations. Meanwhile, Mio had arrived at Tinnarak Forest, where a bunch of adventurers were being closely watched by some forest creatures high in the trees. The forest creatures had knocked out the adventurers they had been stalking, only sparing them because they didn't touch the red lotus flowers. At the demiplane, all the creatures had come together to throw a party as a celebration for the opening of Misumi's trading company to the outside world. The young master simply thanked them. Mini Tomo gave him a drink to calm him, while a jealous Mio fed him cookies. Afterwards, Tomo left, dragging Mio in order to let Misumi communicate with his subjects. Akini, one of the 𝐒𝐒𝐓𝐿, had perfected her transformation and was able to stay in human form. 𝐿𝐼𝐍, the lizard's greatest warrior, finally got strong enough to defeat 𝐒𝐒𝐓𝐼𝐍, and the orc Misumi healed ages ago had come to express his happiness to work for Misumi in his illusory city. While in the woods, Tomo asked Mio to remain quiet about the creatures in the Tinnarak Forest until they had the facts. While they discussed, they suddenly noticed Misumi's life essence vanished from their world, as though he had died. They rushed to him and found him practicing archery. While Mio cried her eyes out, Misumi and Tomo had a discussion that revealed that Misumi's mana had grown to a point similar to the goddess that made him be able to dissolve his consciousness whenever he focused. This was also causing the demi-plane to expand. Their solution was for him to use his kai to hide his mana, while the dwarves built mana-absorbing gear. Misumi then walked Mio home. At night, Mio once again tried to pop the clueless master's cherry, but his fairy-sized brain was incapable of taking hints, and once again, she failed. The next day, after walking for hours setting up the shop, he was gassed. His mana issue only made things worse. While walking home at night, he bumped into a demi-human that gave him a glimpse of what he looked like to regular humans. He then ran into a hooker. His interaction with her quickly ended when the girls, who somehow knew his exact location, came and stole him away. Back home, they were pissed and decided it was time to pop that cherry. Terrified, Misumi tried to dissuade them, but after sealing all the exits and tying him down, they ripped off his shirt. Once they started taking off their armor and revealing their melons, he hit them with ice and ran away through a mist gate. The next day, after getting his new gear and having an awkward moment of silence with Mio, who apologized for the previous night, he decided to take her with him to the Tinnarak Forest. While they walked hand in hand through the ambrosia garden, they were interrupted by the forest creatures who pissed off Mio. While Misumi tried reducing the tension, some adventurers showed up. Among them was the hooker from the previous night. They came looking to claim the ambrosia as theirs. They were all attacked by the forest creatures. After running for a while, Misumi started deflecting their attacks while hiding his mana. Meanwhile, Mio was getting charged up to go on a massacre. Still running from the attacks of the woodland creatures, Misumi was contacted by Tomo telepathically. After blackmailing him for abandoning her, she directed him to use a smoke cloud to cover the adventurers who were transported to his illusory city. This finally gave him the chance to speak to the creatures. To calm Mio down, he fed her his blood. The two of them then destroyed their weapons and captured them. After revealing that he just wanted to talk and strike a deal, the girls who introduced themselves as Aqua and Eris agreed to bring them to their village. Their village was protected by a barrier spell that had kept it concealed and protected. Once inside, they freed the girls who brought them to their elders. They were brought to 𝐒𝐒𝐿𝐔𝐁𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐏𝐍𝐿, the representative of the elders. He revealed that they were forest ogres and not elves as they thought. They protected the forest, hence Aqua and Eris's protective nature. 𝐒𝐿𝐔𝐁𝐒𝐑𝐈𝐏𝐿𝐍 was interrupted by his son Adono, who contradicted his father by claiming that they were the ancestors of elves. After Misumi made his reason for being there clear, they let them go, promising them a feast at night to celebrate. The girls escorted them to a mini-house where their master came in, looking for who knocked out his students. Touching Misumi made him feel something special, so he held on for a bit longer and was kicked away by Mio, who didn't like the excessive contact. Misumi sent Mio to go incognito and spy on the two ogres. She found out that Adono was connected to demons while the master was possessed by something. Misumi then asked her to swap places with Tomoe. During the feast at night, while the ogres danced, Misumi noticed the master as he picked up Adono and seemed to drain him of his life force. The whole village watched as what looked like a skeleton sorcerer emerged from the collapsed master. When Misumi approached the creature, it revealed that Adono's demonic ties had become a problem, hence the need for his death while the master was merely passed out. The creature turned its sights to Misumi and tried to consume him, but was instead consumed as Misumi used dark magic to consume the creature's magic. All that was left was a dried-up ghost rider in a bathrobe. The villagers revealed that they were planning to kill Misumi after the feast and asked for the creature's whereabouts, as he had made Tomo transported elsewhere. Tomo revealed herself to the elder, reminding him how she set up their barrier when she was in her dragon form. They immediately showed respect to her and even more respect to Misumi when they realized that he was her master. In their chambers, they interrogated the creature who revealed he had possessed the ogre master in order to study the ways of the ogres. He was chasing his lifelong goal of becoming a Grant, a higher-level human that could travel between worlds. When Tomo explained that Grants were humans who survived a trip between worlds and not humans that could travel out of free will, the creature became depressed as his life's work, which turned him into a low-level ghost rider, seemed pointless. They invited him to serve the young master and help him learn more about magic. After agreeing and forging a contract, his human body returned, revealing a jacked, angel-like figure whose sword fried the girl's brains. After their formal introductions as master and servant, an explosion rocked the area and Tomo collapsed, apologizing for a mistake and bleeding all over the floor. Misumi told Mio to stay with Tomo while he and the skeleton sorcerer went to the explosion site. While running, Skeleton-san collapsed. He was not used to moving with meat on his bones. He extended his healing abilities from there, and Misumi ran towards the site. He ran into Hokuto the Alka, who seemed to have already merged with the Spider-Verse. Misumi infused his healing Kai into Skeleton-san's healing powers and revived Hokuto. The little piglet who ran past Hokuto earlier on had come to give Misumi the necklace that belonged to the orc he once healed. Misumi left to get to the site. Once there, he saw several mist gates and somehow saw into the memory of the female adventurer. They humans attacked his subordinates in an attempt to rob the treasury. During the struggle, one of Misumi's mana-filled rings was thrown. It blew up, creating the explosion that killed the orc and Mini Tomo. Seeing this, Misumi walked into the mist gate where the adventurer who survived the blast ended up. His demeanor had changed, his eyes filled with hatred. The adventurer tried fighting him off. He slashed off her hands with the short sword the orc had given him and gently put the blade to her throat, ending her existence. Seeing as this was his first intentional human kill, he cried. The next day they held a bonfire for the lost orc and mini Tomoe. Tomo was finally feeling better, and Misumi had decided to name the skeleton sorcerer Shiki, after discussing his ability to see memories with Tomo, who originally had that power. She explained that it was something that happened under extreme circumstances to masters that had defiled their servants. Later on, he went around meeting up with the creatures in the demi-plane, doing damage control. Later that evening, Misumi seemed to have come to a conclusion on the future of the demi-plane. The next day, he went to see Patrick, who had helped him secure a spot in the town of 𝐋𝐈𝐍𝐊, the town that wasn't under any governance, where he could freely operate his business. He thanked Patrick and Morris and revealed who he really was to them before leaving. Back at the house, he was discussing his decision to become a hitchhiking hippie with the girls, who were initially upset that he chose the newbie over them, but were consoled when he gave them specially made memory files as a parting gift. After saying goodbye to everyone he knew, he and Shiki left. But as usual with his botched isekai, his plans were foiled. The goddess had found him. He was transported to an open field away from his servants where he was attacked by two warriors, a Sophia who had just cut off 2 of his fingers, and a Mitsurugi. A conversation between Morris and Patrick revealed that the battle against demons had just begun. For the first time ever, a person's strikes were affecting Misumi. After taking several hits, he tried explaining himself to his attackers. The hot-headed lady was Sophia Buga, the dragon slayer known as the highest-ranked adventurer before Tomo and Mio joined the game. The cute dwarf was named Lancer. He was mainly called Mitsurugi. They revealed that Misumi was currently on a battlefield between the demon and human army. His attackers were with the demons and saw him as a threat because he was transported with the goddess's power. After they failed to listen to his explanations and kept striking, he returned the favor, attacking them both head-on despite missing 2 fingers. After their attacks and refusal to heed reason finally ticked him off, he took off one of his mana rings, unleashing a fraction of his power that was enough to deal severe damage. As a last-ditch effort, Sophia snuck up from behind after he broke her sword and caged his face in between her melons. Misumi the Untouchable somehow forgot how to push away. She took him a couple thousand feet up before letting him go to face the barrage of attacks Mitsurugi had prepared across the sky. With no option left, Misumi took off all his dwarf-crafted drip and simultaneously knocked away all his opponent's icicles while raining down Shinra-level fireballs that reached the war camps. He blew the whole area back in time to the Ice Age with a final water-infused arrow strike that divided the heavens and opened a crater deeper than the Grand Canyon. The aftermath was a washed Sophia who had no armor on any longer, and the already midget Mitsurugi who was missing a leg. Misumi, on the other hand, woke up between his girls Tomo and Mio, completely healed. Meanwhile, Patrick and Morris received word from the front line with survivors claiming that a mage dressed in red was responsible for the tragedy. Back in the demi-plane, Misumi filled the gang in on all the details. Shiki figured that the goddess most likely sent him there to force him to fight against the demons, and Tomo, who always seemed to know everybody, apparently knew who Mitsurugi was. Tomo had a surprise for Misumi. She had another fragment, one smaller than Mini Tomo. Misumi named her Komoe. On the other side of the demi-plane, the forest ogres were training with the orcs and lizards under Tomo's supervision. She was looking at adding them to the demi-plane rankings. The next day at 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐒𝐑𝐈𝐿𝐏, the Kuzunoha store was officially open, with demi-humans working as employees, attracting a large audience with their rare fruits and skills. Patrick and Morris, who came to scope the competition, were impressed by Misumi's genius. The illusory city was also off to a great start, with Misumi's demi-human workers and adventurer friends helping spread the word. Misumi, who finally had the chance to look back on his life, had nothing but gratitude for his experience and was looking to discover more.